What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mock Draft Monday. We have a good one here for you today. It's a 12-team PPR mock draft. We're going to be selecting out of the number 9 spot that was selected via random order. I could have gone the easy way, had a top 2 or 3 pick, been like, look, I got Saquon Barkley, and then the team would have looked a lot better. But this gives us a nice little bit of an interesting challenge. Now at the number 9 spot, that means a lot of the big name running backs are off the board. And of course, the first 8 picks, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, CMC, and then a pair of wide receivers with DeAndre Hopkins and OBJ join Melvin Gordon as the first 8 picks off the board, which leads us to a pretty interesting dilemma right here. Now, obviously, one of the top running backs still available is Le'Veon Bell. You're going to have Devontae Adams. Julio Jones will still be available to you. Travis Kelce might be an interesting spot too, because anybody who's playing in a PPR leagues, if you've had a great tight end like Travis Kelce, you know what an asset it is to have him in there in that spot. And he's somebody that I would consider, because you think back a couple of years ago, it was really in vogue to take Rob Gronkowski in the first round. Now Travis Kelce is that guy. I'm going to go ahead and stay away from them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell. And we can argue about this throughout the entire summer, but I'm a big proponent of Le'Veon Bell in coming drafts. I know a lot of people are worried about that Jets offense. I don't really have those concerns. Now, obviously, Sam Darnold is a second-year quarterback who showed some promise during his first season with the New York Jets. And to me, it kind of is a lot like the way the Los Angeles Rams approached it a couple of years ago when you had Jared Goff, who kind of looked like a disaster during his rookie season. But of course, you put Sean McVay as the head coach of the team and really the offensive coordinator as well. And you saw what Sam Darnold was able to do because of somebody like Todd Gurley next to him. And similarly, Le'Veon Bell is going to have that kind of impact on Sam Darnold's development. And I like a lot of the other weapons there that they have with the New York Jets, including Robbie Anderson. I think he's a good wide receiver who's close to breaking out. Chris Herndon showed me a lot during his season, his rookie season last year. I'm a big proponent of him, especially if we're going to be looking for tight ends late. That is somebody whose name that I have written down. So I'm confident with Le'Veon Bell because he's going to get all the action. He's going to get all the carries. Isaiah Crowella is now a member of the Oakland Raiders, which means there's really going to be nobody battling him for touches, and he's probably their best receiver out of the backfield. As I sit here and I'm talking up Robbie Anderson and Chris Herndon, of course, Le'Veon Bell is still their best receiver. When you have that much opportunity, I think at the number 9 spot, especially at the running back position, and I think it's important to note here, 2 running backs, 2 receivers. I threw in a flex spot, so it's not a 3 receiver, so that means there's going to be other wide receiver depth, which leads me to take Le'Veon Bell with the 1-9 spot, and I feel pretty good about it. I feel like we're off and running, and hopefully one of these wide receivers I talked about can fall to us at the 2-4. Probably not. We'll see what happens, and so, of course, and again, I will let you know that the NFL.com, the mock drafts aren't quite open yet, so I went to some other fantasy site where there's a lot of professionals, and they were able to help us out doing this. But, of course, the NFL.com app is going to be brand new this season. We're revamping that, so we'll have a lot of cool features. That stuff's still to come, though. But right now, we're just kind of wading through this. So at 2-4, all right, we had an interesting choice once again between Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, if you saw the drama unfold over the internets the other day, via on Instagram or Twitter and everything, terrible breakup with these two guys. Antonio Brown, who I love dearly, but you're kind of coming off like the ex who wanted to call it off, but then you're still harping on it. It's like, yeah, we broke up. You don't have to keep mentioning my name over and over again. We're gone. We're done. We can move on. And of course, Antonio Brown still having some issues letting go of what happened in Pittsburgh. And I can understand. He had invested so much time and energy as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's tough to move on when you feel like you're disrespected. So I hate to see it happen. I'm not gonna hold it against him here in fantasy drafts. In fact, I'm going to look forward to Antonio Brown playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this season, really trying to go out there and prove something. I know a lot of people, because they see things that happen online, they see him having a little bit of a meltdown on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, are like, I don't want anything to do with that guy. I kind of want him on my team. Like, I want somebody who's a little bit crazy and who has something to prove. And I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for him to go out there and prove to the Pittsburgh Steelers that perhaps they made a little bit of a mistake in letting him go. So a motivated Antonio Brown, of the mind of going out there and really sticking it to the Steelers. You talk about revenge games. Antonio Brown is really looking at a revenge season. So I really like what he's got going on. I know it's tough. I think if I had to pick one for the long term, if we were playing in a dynasty league, or if you're starting a dynasty league or anything like that, then of course Juju Smith-Schuster is on the ascension of his career. And I'm not fearing Juju having a little bit of a step back because Antonio Brown is not there opposite him. Although, he's played in 3 games without Antonio Brown during the course of his career. Did pretty well, and it's a small sample size. And I really do honestly believe that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be one of those guys who's going to overfeed. Like, he's really going to, it's like when you break up with somebody and then you're seeing somebody new, you're like over-posting stuff on Instagram. Like, hey, look, this is New Bay. This is my new bay. And I think that's going to benefit Juju Smith-Schuster. But in this instance, and I don't know, maybe perhaps that I wanted to go with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. It's kind of a fun little option to have there. I'm going to go with the 2 of them. I think that's going to be a nice combination. I would have been happy with Le'Veon Bell and Juju. Le'Veon Bell and AB is going to be fun. You could have gone with Devontae Adams and Juju. Like, there's a lot of ways you can go here. I don't think that you're going to be steered wrong at this part of the draft, and I feel pretty comfortable. I was a little bummed out that Travis Kelce, I was hoping Travis Kelce was going to sneak back around, and I think if it's possible for you to get one of those top tight ends, it's really something to go out there and absolutely try. I'm gonna give it a go and see what can happen, and really go out there and try to really focus in on getting that tight end, because when you have a guy like Travis Kelce, it makes it makes such a huge difference in your fantasy drafts. Again, I remember a couple of years ago, we were going AB and Gronk right here in this position. And I think that, one of the top receivers and Kelce would be a fun little option. So I think that anybody drafting 10, 11, or 12, don't be afraid to go at Travis Kelce in the first round and then come back around and get one of those wide receivers. As a matter of fact, looking back on it now, I wonder if I should have gone with Travis Kelce, although I really love Le'Veon Bell. I think at this spot, I think this was the last spot. I think right at pick 10, that might be where Travis Kelce, and of course, if you want to check out one of our earlier videos where I had a mock first round, I didn't have Travis Kelce in it, but the more and more as we're going over these draft boards and everything, and it's interesting now that we're able to work through the draft and kind of see where we need to make some adjustments. And of course, let's move on to pick number 3. At 3-9, I took Keenan Allen over Amari Cooper. All the tight ends were off the board, at least the top 3. Zach Ertz was gone. George Kittle was gone. So I said, I'm going to draft the tight end position at some other point. So at 3-9, I went with Keenan Allen. Again, this is the stupidest value. I don't understand what is happening, and I don't want to besmirch anybody's side or anything. And your drafts might not work out this way, but I think Keenan Allen does still carry with him a little bit of a stigma. It's possible he could drop this far, but I think that running backs and the reemergence of the running back position with so many good ones at the top of the draft, it's starting to push a lot of these receivers down. And if you're sitting there in the 3rd round and you get Keenan Allen, then you draft Keenan Allen. And so, again, happy to take him. Thank you so much. And I think starting off a team with Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Keenan Allen in a 12-team league, you got to be kidding me. Because then it gets even better in the 4th round. And one of the players I really love coming into the season, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's ADP is not really moving up the boards right now. And again, with so many great running backs off the top of the board, people are now skipping these second-tier guys. And so somebody like Derrick Henry is available to you in the 4th round. I'm in on this guy. What we saw at the end of last season is pretty much the Derrick Henry I'm counting on seeing this year. And of course, him being an RB2 is even better. And of course, the way this league is set up, there's just 2 wide receivers, so there's not a real need to go wide receiver heavy right off the top, where you've seen a lot of drafts where if you're in a PPR league with 3 wide receivers, it's a little bit different. But in this situation, to get Derrick Henry what we saw, and I don't know what Matt LaFleur was doing for the first, 13, 14 weeks of the season, where he did not want to get the ball to Derrick Henry. And perhaps it's a little bit of the way the NFL works now, is that nobody's really willing to go out there and establish a running game, because somebody like Derrick Henry needs to be fed the ball over and over again and get him going, because players really lose interest in trying to tackle Derrick Henry. As the game wears on, you're like, I'm really done stepping in front of this guy. He's been in the halls here at the NFL Network, and he is a giant dude. Like, a lot of times you see guys, especially like defensive back receivers, you're like, oh, like, you're like, oh, you're not super tall, I'm sort of like not in an athletic sense, but you're like, oh, height-wise, I'm as tall. But Derrick Henry looks like a lineman. As a matter of fact, the last time that he was in here, he was kind of cruising around, and, if you don't see the sheet of, like, who's in the building or whatnot, you're like, oh, what lineman's it? Oh, that's Derrick Henry. So getting him at the 4th spot, I'm very excited about that. At the 5th spot, this was a tougher one. Now, for me, there was a lot of interesting selections. Quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers are still available, and I would think about it. I really would. Matt LaFleur, I'm not sure what we're going to get out of him this year. Again, he's the guy who didn't feed the ball to Derrick Henry. Now, was that something that was coming from above? Was that some other influence that was making that happen? I don't know. Matt LaFleur, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, Matt LaFleur still worries me a little bit, because what are his credentials? Like, when you see Cliff Kingsbury come in and he's the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, I can at least get down with him a little bit, because he was a head coach. Now, he wasn't wildly successful in terms of national championships at Texas Tech, but the fact that he made a team in Lubbock, Texas, interesting. I think that's on par with Nick Saban winning a national. Like, Nick Saban won a national championship with Alabama. Like, you should be winning national. You get all the top prospects. Like, of course, like this, you're playing, Madden on rookie. Cliff Kingsbury had it on the highest degree of difficulty and was turning out quality NFL players, including Patrick Mahomes. Didn't see a need for Baker Mayfield. Like, this guy's got something. Matt LaFleur is not that person. So he could be. Who knows? We haven't seen enough out of him. Last year was his first opportunity to call plays for the Tennessee Titans. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch Titan games and sit there and go like, you know what, this guy should be a head coach. This guy's got it going on. But you know what, whatever. So that worries me a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Plus, I'm a Bears fan, if you didn't know that already. I mean, it should be somewhat obvious. I'm not wearing a Bears hat now. I'm representing the Shield. But, so I passed on Aaron Rodgers. I passed on Baker and Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. I feel like we can still get a quarterback later. Hopefully, even though here at 5'9", we should be able to, in the 6th round, maybe we could take one of those guys. Maybe we could sneak in one of those quarterbacks. And so what we're going to do is take Kerryon Johnson at the running back position. So now we got 3 running backs, which is usually something that I don't have a lot of. It's one of those things like, I don't really, I usually don't stack up, and especially in PPR leagues. But Kerryon Johnson to me is an interesting prospect, because he really came on at the end of last season for the Detroit Lions. Injury concerns are always going to be looming over him, but somebody with some potential, because we're drafting a flex position right now. I think Kerryon Johnson could end up being a pretty good value. He could be somebody who takes that next leap, who's ready to go on to the next level. And I always want to be, maybe a round or 2 early on these guys, instead of waiting for them and trying to get cute and being like, I'd really like to have this guy. Like, I know a lot of people will come in and they'll be like, well, I'd love to have him in the 7th. Like, no S. Like, of course, I'd love to have him in the 12th. But sometimes that's not going to be possible. And so we risk a run on quarterbacks here to go for our flex running back. Is it going to cost us? Well, it kind of did, because the next picks were Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, so forth and such. And you're like, oh my God, what did I do? We also passed on O.J. Howard. Now, if I may take a moment right here to just talk a little bit about O.J. Howard, you'll hear a lot of people during the fantasy draft process, they'll be like, oh, Bruce Arians never used his tight end, which is absolutely true. Because it was Darren Fells, a dude who played college basketball at UCI, who made the tournament this year, by the way. And it was, I can't even think of, Ricky Seals-Jones. So it's not like he was dealing with elite tight end help. Now, and a lot of people look at Bruce Arians going to Tampa Bay and they think about, hey, he's going to make Mike Evans into a slot receiver like he did with Larry Fitzgerald. But Larry Fitz was at the end of his career. Mike Evans is still, again, climbing up on his career. He's just ready to take off. The guy who could be moved into the slot is O.J. Howard. And so, sorry, I just got a message from somebody. Anyways, O.J. Howard could be a guy who could benefit from Bruce Arians being there. O.J. Howard could end up playing that Larry Fitzgerald role. And then maybe in the 5th round, maybe, this is a pretty good opportunity to scoop him up and somebody who could go ahead and take that leap this season. So O.J. Howard was somebody that I passed on here for Kerryon Johnson. Immediately regretted it because at 6'4", O.J. Howard was already gone. I should have known that it was too good to be true. And perhaps in talking about somebody that you're willing to take a risk on in the 5th round, perhaps it should have been O.J. Howard. I need to realize that I made a mistake. And so that was unfortunate. I could have gone with somebody else. I feel I'm bummed out. O.J. Howard is somebody that I like there in that 5th round. It'll be interesting to see the way his ADP works. Again, if we can get Travis Kelce 10, 11, 12, in that kind of range, we could do it. Then we don't have to worry about it. But I think if you miss out on one of those 3 top tight ends, one of the guys that I'm really going to be looking after is going to be O.J. Howard. Hunter Henry could be pretty good upon his return, although I already have Keenan Allen on this squad, so I'm going to skip him. Instead, I'm going to go with Ty Lockett, one of the most efficient players in the NFL. I really love his game. Seattle doesn't throw the ball a lot. As a matter of fact, the Seattle Seahawks were one of the top running teams in the NFL last year. And if they weren't the top running team in terms of attempts, they were very close. Even with all that said, Ty Lockett is still a very effective NFL receiver. Russell Wilson always finds a way to get him the ball. Now he's really touchdown dependent, but he's going to be more of our slot receiver. It's going to be difficult because he's not going to be one of those guys. Like, that's one of the things about Julio, where if he doesn't score a touchdown, he still catches 10 passes. You still got a pretty good game out of him, and it's not that big a deal. Ty Lockett's a little bit riskier in PPR formats, but he is so proficient in getting into the end zone, and Russell Wilson always likes to attack him and attack the ball down the field. So I feel really good about him at number 6. At number 7, there is another quarterback run here, so we're going to go with Robbie Anderson. At number 8.4, we went with Sterling Shepard. Again, we're just looking at guys who could be high-volume passers. You know what? Robbie Anderson could be the top targeted receiver for the New York Jets. Sterling Shepard might end up being the top targeted receiver for the New York Giants, even though they have Evan Ingram, even though they have that other guy, Golden Tate. I have a lot of faith in Sterling Shepard, and I think that he could be somebody moving forward that you take a look at, especially here at 8.4. I think that's a pretty good option right there. At 9.9, we were able to land Mike Davis of the Chicago Bears. Again, Tariq Cohen went off the board a little bit earlier, but Mike Davis could end up being a pretty sneaky find right there at 9.9. Like, dude, I'm in. Obviously, the Bears saw something in them, and of course, this could all change once the draft happens. If the Bears don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds, and if they end up drafting a running back in the 3rd round, perhaps the 4th round, then Mike Davis's value would take a little bit of a hit. But for what we're doing right now, I think I'm pretty comfortable with Mike Davis there. At 10.4, now I've noticed this, and a lot of, this is going to be, I'm just doing this as a way to show people where this player is going right now. But the Browns RB2, who is suspended for the first 8 games of the season, he's still available in the 10th round. A lot of you might not want to have him. It's hard to get those images out of your mind of what happened. Say no more. I'm typically in the same boat with you. I probably won't draft this player, but I did want to give you a little bit of a nod to anybody who's thinking about drafting him. 10.4 was where I found the Browns RB2. At 11.9 is where I finally addressed the quarterback position. I probably could have waited a lot more because there were 11 quarterbacks off the board. 2 quarterbacks that were left. Jared Goff was still there. Phillip Rivers was still there. I went with Phillip Rivers. We're gonna pair him with with Keenan Allen. Well, we will be pairing him with Derrick Henry. They're not teammates, but his actual teammate, Keenan Allen, was our 3rd round draft pick, and that really didn't weigh too much into the decision. I'm not afraid of anything like that. I know some people are like, oh, can you draft the same quarterback and receiver from the same team? I don't have a problem with that at all. If you want to do that, and even then, like Hunter Henry could have been somebody we thought about there at 6.4. But again, I wasn't quite into it. I wanted to go with who did we go with? Tyler Lockett. So it's okay. And I think, Phillip Rivers in this spot, like this guy puts up quality fantasy performances each and every season. And some of the other quarterbacks who are still available out there on the board, Mitch Trubisky was still out there, Jimmy Garoppolo. If you want to carry a stable of quarterbacks, those are three guys that I could rotate in. It depends on how much depth you want to play with. We still got to fill our tight end position. We haven't done that yet. And we probably won't do that till the 13th round because there's a guy I've got in mind. And so we went Phillip Rivers over Jared Goff. And by the way, I'm a little bit worried about Jared Goff this season. One of the biggest concerns to me is that the Bears kind of showed everybody, I'll give the Lions a little bit of credit. They didn't have the talent to pull it off, but the Lions were kind of like, this is how you defend Jared Goff. And the Bears had the players like, okay, yeah, we can make this happen. And they absolutely did. And then, obviously, the Patriots did that in the Super Bowl. I'm curious to see what happens to Jared Goff this season. So I'm kind of staying away. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to go into a season relying on Jared Goff. Again, I'll take Phillip Rivers. If Goff is still there, if everybody is scared of Jared Goff, then perhaps I'll take him as well, and we can have a little bit of, again, a quarterback stable. I don't mind that at all, and I kind of like the mix and match, and you stream your quarterbacks. There's going to be a run where Ryan Fitzpatrick's the best quarterback in the NFL before he throws 6 interceptions in a game. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and unless your league rewards you with 6 points per passing touchdown, there's really not a need to go out after these guys. It was interesting. If Rodgers would have made it to the 6th round, I probably would have jumped in on that. Or Baker Mayfield as well, but those guys were gone. So be it. You guys go do your thing. I don't care. At 12.4, I'm going to take MVS, Marquez, Valdez, Scantling. Again, I'm sitting here dogging Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and all that stuff. There is a chance this team could end up being really good. So if that happens, I at least want the guy who I project to be the wide receiver 2 outside of Devontae Adams at the 12th round pick. If it doesn't work out, so be it. At 13.9, this is where we finally land our tight end. We got Chris Herndon. Again, I thought this guy played pretty well during his rookie season. And I think that he's somebody that can grow in this offense. And Le'Veon Bell, as the anchor of this offense, is going to help out everybody around him. So, with a pecking order of Le'Veon Bell, number 1, Robbie Anderson. So we actually have too many Jets. We have so many Jets. I apologize for that. We also could have gone Trey Burton. If I went back and did this in hindsight, perhaps Trey Burton should have been the guy but I was just looking at value. I wasn't looking at, I have too many Jets on my team, which I should have been. But listen, dude, it's April. So what do you want? What do you want from me? But anyways, I like Chris Herndon there. 14.4, we took DK Metcalf. Who knows where he's going to be drafted? He might not get into the right position, and then this is going to be a dumb thing that we don't even talk about. We never address again in the history of mankind. And, of course, Tyrell Williams was available to us at 15.9. Again, it's too many Raiders. We're locking with these stacks. I really do believe this Raiders offense could be pretty good this season. I know a lot of people think that Derek Carr is just the same old Derek Carr, but he was a lot better than a lot of people were giving him credit for. And maybe at some point I could address that in a video, because I do believe the Raiders will be making a mistake if they do not stick with Derek Carr in the coming draft. You have 3 picks here in the top, in the first round. The Raiders should definitely go with defensive help. You have so many needs. You don't need a quarterback. If Kyler Murray falls to you at 4, I'll talk about it. So in any event, let's go over this. We were, 12 teams, PPR. We were coming from the 9th pick. We got Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Keenan Allen, Derrick Henry. Solid foundation right there. Kerryon Johnson, felt that was a little bit of a mistake. And of course, we got Ty Lockett, Robbie Anderson, Sterling Shepard, Mike Davis, Browns RB2, Phillip Rivers, MVS, Chris Herndon, DK Metcalf, Tyrell Williams. This will be something that we could probably laugh about at some point. Like, why were you so high on this guy? And it happens. I go back and I look back at some of the mock drafts I did last year. But just to give you guys and girls a little bit of a chance to think about where we're going here in April, I think it was a pretty good first look. Now, Be sure to like and subscribe this page if you can. Yeah, we will continue to do Mock Draft Mondays all the way through the summer. I know we're in the spring right now, but we'll do this all the way through the summer. And of course, we will have the Adam Rank podcast. You can find that on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and the iHeartRadio app. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more. Download, subscribe to that podcast as well as we get you ready for your fantasy football seasons. And of course, NFL Fantasy Live will be returning in this fall. The NFL.com fantasy app is going to be released. As a matter of fact, I might have a little bit of breaking news. Breaking news on a video. We will be updating. We will be, you know what, we're going to be releasing, some of the stuff on the app. Let you guys know we got a lot of cool things. We have a very talented team of engineers here who are really striving hard to make our app the absolute greatest in the game. You guys are going to like a lot of what we're doing. Hopefully all of it. But there's going to be a lot of cool stuff on this app, so make sure you download the NFL.com fantasy app. In any event, thanks for joining us. Till next time.